Today we have our old friend Misha Edel to talk about the impact of GenAI on legacy or incumbent enterprise software vendors. But let me begin with a quote attributed to Tom Siebel. Silicon always gets commoditized. Infrastructure always gets commoditized. What does not get commoditized in the long run are the applications. So what is the potential impact of GenAI integration into the enterprise software ecosystem?
Alec, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting. It's great to talk about this enormous topic which we're all going to go through as a humanity in the next 10 years or so. And I think before answering your very pointed question, I would like to take a step back and take a look at what enterprise software actually means. I think one way to start is to think about an impact that a company, CloudStrike, had on the flying everywhere in the globe. We had thousands of flights canceled. And that's surprising for many people because nobody heard about that particular cybersecurity system. Well, that's enterprise software for you, right? What we see as consumers is a very tiny part of an iceberg, which is enterprise software. And I think when we think about enterprise software, we need to think about the whole richness of what it does, what we see and what we don't see. And we also need to think about how much that particular software and that type of technology evolved over the last 50 years or so, right? We started with large computers, with mainframes, we moved to client servers, we moved to cloud, we had a SaaS software, and now we're moving to something very unknown. And that unknown is a GenAI where technology is trying to mimic how we think, trying to predict our next thought, word, idea. So that's the impact, right? And how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to harness the power of that is going to be a major challenge. The way I think about it is specifically for enterprise software around three dimensions. One is people who make it, people who buy it, and people who use it. And if you think about what actually means for everybody, right? You can see that GenAI clearly makes it much easier to make software, right? It writes code in multiple languages. It understands the code which was written many, many years ago, help us annotate the code. So effectively, it makes much easier to enter software domain. If you're thinking about enterprise software, more startups can enter because it's easier to enter. Right? That's one big aspect, right? So we have more competition potentially coming in. In terms of the buyers of software, it's trivial to say that every business now is a software business. Well, now if I'm a software business, then should I be doing software development myself? Well, if GenAI make it easier, maybe if I need to develop a very custom application which depends on my proprietary data and knowledge of my workers, then I can potentially do it myself without asking for a vendor who can take it into the next play in my industry and decrease my competitive advantage. So that's a question of demand. How much demand will decrease because companies will be doing it themselves? That's a big question. Maybe yes, maybe no. And finally, and I think that's what we see the most of GenAI revolution right now is on the user side. We all wrote email with GenAI, we ask for recipes, we ask for itineraries. It's very easy to use. It's very user-friendly technology, unbelievably easy. It creates images, it helps us with our creativity, it becomes a friend sometimes, and what it all means is that it creates a layer on top of the existing software. It's very easy to imagine a world where you don't have to go to a native legacy software interface and ask it about a report or ask it about a trend analysis or any of that nature. You can just go to your preferred ChatGPT window and say, well, tell me about the trends. Go to my preferred transactional database and tell me exactly what happened in the last 3 months. That layer between myself and my underlying system can really be a powerful way to think about what actually happens between a user and its technology. There is so much technology in the world. That's why GenAI can be really helpful in helping in creating the layer of us to harness that technology, help us to really get to the bottom of what we need to know without spending too much time with it. And it also will help us with the training. Now people will maybe don't need to spend as much time learning about SAP or Oracle or Salesforce. They can just ask ChatGPT do it for them.
What challenges do business users typically encounter when GenAI gets integrated into workflow from what you've seen?
The challenges comes from the perspective of it's too new and developing too fast, and people don't know exactly how it's going to behave under different circumstances. We all heard about hallucination in early days. It's not standard. It can be biased. There are questions about how it was trained, right? So there are some evidence that big LLM models already absorbed all public knowledge available on the internet to the tune of 99%. We're talking about all languages, all modalities, everything. They've been trained on everything we as humanity produced and made publicly available. That's an enormous amount of data. But the enterprise thrives and competes and wins primarily on the private data. So the challenge is really for the enterprise to find that nugget of the private data and build the moat which help it to really build something unique that will help it to sell more to its customers, help it to serve its customers better, and to get a differentiated value for them. So that's a challenge. And I think that's where the next battle lines are going to be. How and who is going to be more successful in creating that unique experience with the new technology? Because so far we have not been able to find a killer app for the technology. I've read multiple articles by companies like Zendesk and others that clearly the customer service is one of the obvious areas where the GenAI revolution is going to be completely unstoppable. And rightly so, because it's a standard question, standard answers, we're taking the cost out, highly digitized area to begin with. Let's go, right? But that's only one area, right? What about others? And I personally think that we might have more benefit from the new technology in what I would call unknown, meaning that in that vast universe of technology, talking to technology, that part of the iceberg which we do not see, if Gen AI technology can recognize the patterns which we as humans cannot really grasp, given the limited amount of time we have in computation power, that's what would be very interesting. I'm thinking about healthcare, I'm thinking about engineering challenges, I'm thinking about even military challenges. That's where Gen AI technology will be in a huge force multiplier going forward. But the challenges for implementing that will be the same, right? How to integrate it in the human process, where the human end and technology begins, what is actually going to stay from the legacy software and what will be replaced. And that's a change management question, which is going to be answered differently for different applications, different companies, and different people. And that's where it's going to be unique. There is no standard answer, and that will take a while to permeate throughout the whole of the business world.
What strategic implications does GenAI create for the parties involved? And that includes incumbent software vendors, it includes business users, and the new generation, new crop of GenAI companies.
It's a race, and it's a race which we don't know where to stop, because LLMs develop so unbelievably fast and their capabilities develop so unbelievably fast. We don't really know where it's going to stop, right? We're really grasping to understand what it might or may not be able to do. So it's very hard to know how to build business capabilities without knowing what it will actually end up doing, right? We've seen a multiple generation of startups being wiped out by a new release of ChatGPT. The challenge, therefore, for everybody in the space is twofold. On one hand, you need to run as fast as you can. On the other hand, that part of running could be just to stay in place. What I mean by that is clearly all enterprise vendors, going back to our framework, have to think about what exactly they're doing to integrate ChatGPT in their offer. How they're going to partner with their customers and create something unique for each of those customers. How they're going to take their customers' unique data and help them be more agile, more customer oriented, and more cost efficient. That's a huge challenge on their part. They have to do it, and they started doing those things, but that's going to be a never-ending quest, right? And there are enormous investments to be made in the technology. They also need to retool their own R&D development because now, when it's much cheaper and much faster, it has to change how they operate internally and what the frontier of innovation is going to be for them as well. That's one big challenge. The second one is that because technology is so new and there are so much green open space that there are presumably a wave of startups coming in trying to eat somebody's lunch. So the challenge is going to be not only to innovate for existing vendors, but also defend their turf and potentially engage in merger and acquisition to find the right technology, right partner to really go to the market. From the buyers of technology, the question is really, what do I buy now? Do I wait until the matters are settled and then buy, or do I do it something now? It's a difficult question to answer because if you wait, well, what happens if your competition is way ahead of you? If they already can offer something much cheaper than what you do for the similar product and similar service, aren't you going to be completely losing market share? That's a difficult situation to be in. On the other hand, if you try and you fail, my bet is that people need to experiment in a smart way, but very aggressively, trying to figure out where they can save cost, where they can improve service, and how to engage with it. And finally, I think, again, it's more interesting on the user side. We need to understand how to engage with technology, where can we trust it, and we need to groom people within organizations that know how to use it, know how to verify it, and know how to integrate their workflow with them. Ultimately, the companies that will have more people able to harness technology better are going to be the winners, no matter what technology will end up doing and being capable of doing. So the future, in a sense, is very bright. It's being shaped in front of our eyes, but we need to be working very hard to make it a success.
Misha, thank you very much for your insights.
You're welcome.